Oh, the Spurs eliminate the Rockets in dominating fashion, but do the Spurs have what it takes to beat the Warriors in the Western Conference Final? Let's find out from Tommy Beer, senior NBA analyst for Basketball Insiders. He joins us live via Skype from Queens, New York. Good morning, Tommy. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Miko.
Tommy, before we go to the Western Conference Finals, we all just need to know what happened to James Harden in Game 6.
That's the million-dollar question, Miko, and I'm sure the Rockets fans are trying to figure that out right now. It'd be one thing if a player didn't play well, but he was simply just disinterested, didn't play with fight, didn't play with effort. It's one thing if you miss all your shots. It's another thing not to attempt your normal. He didn't attempt a shot until midway through the second quarter. For an MVP candidate, that's quite simply just not acceptable.
And really, it's a pity for this brilliant Rocket season to end this way. You have to be, you have to be sad for this franchise because they were such a feel-good story all throughout the year, and then Game 6 happens. How disappointing is it, even for an objective observer like you are?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they played with great enthusiasm, great energy. We know about this, the space and pace, the three-ball attack under D'Antoni. They're one of the more exciting, entertaining teams all season. And then these last two games, they simply died out. Did they run out of steam? Was James Harden dealing with something we don't know about? He said he was okay physically, but his play on the court, it suggested otherwise. It was just a really shocking, stunning turn of events here, especially and when you consider the fact that the Spurs were playing without Kawhi Leonard, their best defender and their best player. Really inexplicable performance by the Rockets and particularly James Harden.
Of course, not at all surprising. The Spurs do this all the time. They do something great. And we all say, well, that's what the Spurs do. LaMarcus Aldridge coming out of his shell, really playing strong, 34 points in Game 6. Your thoughts on how LaMarcus played?
Yeah, it's a good point, Miko. And the Rockets are going to get crushed, and rightfully so, but the Spurs definitely deserve a lot of credit. This Rockets team was one of the best offenses, in the regular season. The Spurs held them to under 100 points 3 times in the series. This is for a team that averaged 115. And you're right, LaMarcus Aldridge was one of the key factors for San Antonio. He was quiet, disappointing for the most of the regular season and the postseason. But once Kawhi went down, they kind of fed him in the post. This was the player that the Spurs thought they were getting when they signed him to a big contract 2 summers ago, and he delivered in a big way on Thursday night.
Another player who delivered in a really big way was Jonathan Simmons, a guy who was in the D-League, had to pay for a tryout in the D-League, and he's now the feel-good story of the playoffs. Your thoughts on Jonathan Simmons' performance?
Incredible story from Jonathan Simmons. You mentioned this is a guy that had to buy his way into a tryout and is now starting on the biggest stage in Game 6. Amazingly, the Spurs are actually 5-0 this year in games that Kawhi Leonard and Tony Parker have not participated in. That speaks to Popovich's coaching, the great depth of the Spurs, and in particular, Jonathan Simmons played really, really well. This guy's a pending free agent, and he's going to cash in big time, and it's hard to find a guy more deserving. He came up the right way, a real humble kid, went to high school in Houston, so he really enjoyed sticking it to the Rockets last night in that crucial, crushing Game 6.
And this leads us to the next question. The Spurs, do they have what it takes to really challenge the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals?
Miko, I really hesitate to count out the Spurs because I feel like so many of us did after Game 1 when the Rockets crushed them. And I picked the Rockets, so I'm dead wrong, and the Spurs proved me wrong. That being said, I just don't see the Spurs having the firepower to go up against the Warriors. Not only are the Warriors incredibly offensively just as good as the Rockets, if not better, the Warriors led the league in offensive efficiency during the regular season. They were also nearly just as good defensively as the Spurs. They were second in defensive efficiency. The Spurs were actually first in the league. So the Warriors can do it to you on all ends of the floor. So many talented players all over the court. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. It's very unlikely that 3 or 4 of those guys will all go cold in one game. And I think the Warriors will actually win quite easily in this Western Conference Finals.
If you're a Spurs fan, how worried should you be with the physical condition of Kawhi Leonard?
Certainly a concern. Fortunately, it sounds like he was willing to play in Game 6 against the Rockets. It was just simply Coach Popovich and the training staff made a decision to sit him out. It turns out to be the very right decision. There was a report out this morning that he is expected to play in Game 1. I think he does suit up. assuming he doesn't have any setbacks between now and Sunday afternoon. So I think there is a good likelihood that he will play. The question, of course, is he hobbled? Is he limited in any way? That's what we're going to have to find out come Game 1.
Tommy Beer, Basketball Insider, senior NBA analyst. Thank you, Tommy, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Have a good one, Miko.